Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs?
We're going to bring y'all into our huddle.
Today is Wednesday, April 16th, 2014, and you are in the Warriors Huddle with me, Bram. With me, as always, my boy and producer, Scott.
Scott here.
Scotty, it's the playoffs, baby. You fired up or what?
Yeah, this is what we've all been waiting for. The time has come.
I can't believe how quickly this season has passed. I'll bitch about that later on. For now, with the Warriors having clinched a 50-win season and the 6th seed in the playoffs, you know we got big things to talk about. In the Warriors Update, we're going to go through both our favorite parts of this remarkably successful year and also talk about the portions that quite simply sucked ass and were a little bit frustrating. And then, in a playoffs version of WTH, we're going to go through and figure out what the hell are the real storylines and keys to the upcoming series between the Warriors and the Filthy Clips, including how Golden State can move on to the second round. Now, quickly, before we get to either of those, a show note, Uber is still our lone sponsor. Now, if there's people out there who'd like to sponsor us, we'd have no problem with it. But for now, my favorite app remains Uber. As you guys know, download this thing, and it allows you to get a car that'll take you wherever the hell you want to without having to look for a cab or the money to pay for it.
And when you sign up, you'll see a promotional code box. Enter Huddle into that, and you get $30 off of your first ride, which is going to cover quite a long distance.
You can take it anywhere you want, man. It's a free ride on us. Use this crap, please, because there's absolutely no reason not to. Now, enough of the show notes. In fact, I'm so eager to talk playoffs and talk this last season. We won't even go through past scores, current standings. Let's just jump right into the Warriors update, big man. After tonight's pretty meaningless game against Denver, the Warriors will have completed this 2013-2014 season. It went by crazy fast, yeah?
It did. It's stunning that we're at that moment already. The playoffs came up really quick, too. We had built up the finish to the Western Conference so much throughout the season. This is going to be such a crazy finish. And the fact that not much is coming down to this last game, kind of anticlimactic. I think that's maybe what makes it feel like, wow, the playoffs are already here.
Well, there's that one thing. I mean, there's the slight possibility that the Clippers win tonight, the Thunder lose, and then now we're stuck playing OKC, and this podcast becomes completely worthless because we did our whole breakdown of the Clippers versus Warriors series. But you're right, and we were ready for all this drama, and it looks like most of the drama has already been resolved. I have a problem. Every single time somebody says the word playoffs, I hear Jim Moore's stupid-ass voice in my head, and I don't know how long that's going to last. It's seemingly... when the hell did he give that quote, man? It was like 10 years ago. Why are we still using it?
You come up with a catchy hook and a catchy phrase, and that thing can stick around for a long time, just like one of those songs that gets stuck in your head every single week.
That's a real deal.
I have things in my life that people said to me when I was a child that when I do them today, I still remember that person. I remember my Uncle John. He said, when you blow your nose, get 2 pieces of Kleenex because one is not enough. You'll blow right through it. Every time I blow my nose, I still think about my Uncle John.
That is awesome. Now, let me offer you a quick apology. If I said something to you right there that made you think I gave a single about what your Uncle John told you years ago about Kleenex, my apologies. I certainly don't want to jump down that rabbit hole with you now. But what I do want to talk about, regardless of catchy things that stick in our mind, is this Warriors year. 50 wins is a big deal in my mind, man. This is an accomplishment, certainly when it's put onto the back of back-to-back 6 seeds in the playoffs. Are you impressed? We all know that I go over the top. We all know I like to kind of overemphasize every success that the Warriors have. This seems like a benchmark for me, but is it?
It is a benchmark because you need to build on what happened last year. And so last year you didn't hit the 50 wins mark. You got the 6th seed still. But this year, I think it was one of the goals of this team was to get to that 50 wins mark.
Sure.
It doesn't necessarily equate to a higher playoff seed because it's still the 6th. But personally, for this team, I think it means a lot because it's showing progress. They're building. They're going forward. And so I do actually think the number 50 means something to these guys.
March to respectability. They want to add something every year to this team's resume, just like you're saying. And that's exactly what they did. They haven't had 50 wins in 20 years, so it means something to put it up. But don't take your word for it. Don't take mine. Here's Steph Curry talking about the importance of the 50 wins and how he and his team celebrated it.
With all you've been through with this organization, 2 consecutive now playoff appearances, 50 wins, can you sort of capture what this means? Where do you put this and where this team is and where you are right now?
It's hard to imagine. I mean, this is something you dream about, to be, going to the playoffs, and that's an expectation every year. Obviously, our work's not done, and it's hard to separate yourself from the moment. But I'm sure at the end of this ride, we'll kind of look back and see where we were in 2009 when I was drafted to now. A lot has changed. Coach Jackson came in, like I said, done a great job. And, what else could you ask for?
You can tell it means a lot to him, and I actually looked up to see how many wins he'd had leading up to this. Where has Steph's career been going before this 2013 season? In 2009, the team had 26 wins. 2010, they had 36 wins. 2011, only 23 wins. And then finally last year, they turned it around a little bit, but they had 47. This has been a slow and steady climb in the right direction, and this has got to be a culmination for him. There's no way, as much as he wants to look forward to playoff success, as much as they want to pretend that it's championship or bust, this has got to resonate for him, man. It's got to mean something.
Of course it does, because you have to, I think, as a player, continue to find ways to motivate yourself. Yep. You have to find ways to keep raising the bar. And so last year, you're at, 46 or 47?
47.
47. This year, the bar's raised to 50. That means it's got to get raised again next year. And I think players, in the NBA where it's such a job-type situation, you need to find little things to motivate you, to push you harder in that offseason. And I think getting to that 50 mark was one of those.
I completely agree, especially in the course of an 82-game regular season. You got to have those little things that you can remember that kind of spurs you on. Now, do you think we're on the road to perennial success? One of the things I wrote here in my notes was that what makes me happy about this team is that, unlike last year, it doesn't feel like we got lucky. It doesn't feel like we slipped in through the back door. It doesn't feel like this was like magic that we somehow bottled. Same kind of feeling I had in We Believe. This feels like a team that is going to continually be here. They've got the pieces. They've got a front office that is badass. It feels like we could be saying the words Warriors clinch playoff berth over and over and over again going forward. Would you agree with that?
I think so. I really do. I think that this team reminds me a lot of the Pacers and the way that the Pacers have grown. Yeah. I see the Warriors growing in that same way, where if they can come back with this common core of players next year and keep getting to know how each other plays, what spots people are going to be, you're going to see this team continue to win, because right now you can already see it with the way like Steph and Klay play with each other. Steph will throw a pass before Klay Thompson is even there,
because he knows where the hell he wants him to be, and they've already developed that chemistry. Sure.
Right, he knows that spot where he's going to be. Imagine if that happens with Iguodala, who I still feel like is not fully integrated. Yeah. And some of these other guys, we've seen Draymond's maturation. So these guys are going to keep getting better as long as they don't blow this thing up.
Am I wrong, or are you rehashing that Indiana take? I really feel like 3 or 4 weeks ago you made that exact, almost like verbatim, point for point kind of thing.
Well, you should stop asking the same questions then. Listen when I said the first time.
Update your opinions, man. Games have happened in between. We're a 50-win team now. I thought maybe you'd have some extra stuff to say. As long as we're rehashing our old takes, I will say what I said then. I agree with you. I do think Indiana is a perfect example, and the next step is what Indiana did. They added someone like David West. I think if this team really wants to stop being just a perennial playoff contender, which I love, but to actually take that step towards title contention, I do think we need that extra player. The way that Indiana added David West, I think we need one more addition to this team, but that might be a question for the offseason.
Yeah, sure. Certainly they need more if they're going to be a championship team, but I really think that they should celebrate what they've done this year and what they've accomplished, because 50 wins is a lot, and it's pretty much right where everyone thought they were going to be, and they've done that. So I feel that there's a certain movement out there in the Warriors fan base that this season has somehow been disappointing, or this team has underachieved in some sort of way, and it hasn't. They did exactly what everyone was predicting they were going to do.
Well, I tell you what, let's go through it. Properly. Let's go through the actual favorite portions of the year and kind of rehash what they have been able to do. I highlighted 3 things that jumped out to me. Why don't we bounce back and forth? I'll tell you my first favorite part of the year. There was a series of game winners that we got to enjoy this year. The first and foremost one, the one that really stuck out in my head, was Iguodala's game winner against Oklahoma City. For those of you who don't remember, I can't imagine it's a whole lot of you. Here's the clip.
Warriors to get this shot off. Iguodala, and here it goes. He got it! The Warriors have won on a game-winning shot by Iguodala!
There's multiple things that I loved about that shot, and just rewatching it now kind of brings me back into the moment. The first thing I loved, do you remember this sequence? It was right after Westbrook had hit what felt like a dagger, like a game-winning three-pointer, and he celebrated like he had just won like 18 lotteries at once. Like the championship had just been handed to him, and he was going to march off Oakland's court and house all of us. And right when he was at the height of his cockiness, Iguodala comes back and just steals the game from him. It just felt so justified and phenomenal.
And more than that, though, it, I think, was the beginning of this team believing that they can hang with the powerhouses in the West Coast.
Exactly right.
And also, more than that, it was the beginning of this team showing that they're very resilient, that anyone can make a shot before the buzzer goes off. That's going to give them a lead. But as long as they have some time left on the clock, they have the potential to hit that next game-winning shot.
They have huge heart. Yep.
Yeah, so this game happened in early November or like mid-November, and I think what made it so important was that Iguodala had just, kind of the new guy to the team. He showed that he was a valuable piece of this team and was going to be an important factor, and showed that to all Warriors fans, which is why this was also on my list.
Good knowledge on the date of the game. That's why we pay you the big bucks, Scotty. You obviously did a little bit of research here. You also echoed many of the things I was getting ready to say, and you got to use the phrase more than that on more than one occasion. So good for you on that as well. I think
I'm into repeating things.
You're just destroying it, I can tell. The thing that you said that speaks to most to me is that this was Iguodala's honeymoon period. We knew what he could do as far as defensively. We knew he was this glue guy. We knew he would help us. But for him to be the guy that put us up and over the hump, and for us to now realize, just like you said, we're in this kind of Western elite. You come and play us at home, we can play with anybody, was awesome. So this actually definitely made my top 3 moments. What's your next one?
And it was just a hell of a shot. My God.
Watching the replay, it was a hard as hell shot. That was not an easy shot at all. I knew it was going in. This is a replay, and I was nervous about watching it. So a high degree of difficulty for sure.
On my end, I'm a point guard guy. I've always loved the point guard position, and what comes with that is passing.
Sure.
Isaiah Thomas, grew up on him. Tremendous passer. Magic Johnson, always loved his passing. So I have a love for the good pass.
Yeah.
I'm going to put onto my list of favorite Warriors moments from this season the Iguodala behind the back.
Sure.
To David Lee. They were playing the Sixers.
Yeah.
Klay Thompson has the ball at the top of the key. He throws what was a pass that would have gone out of bounds to Iguodala along the sideline, who just catches it, whips it around his back.
Midair, right?
Midair.
Yeah.
And just delivers a dime to David Lee.
That's also the kind of play, because it wasn't a game-winning score, it kind of shows that you're a next-level NBA fan. That I don't like just as flashy plays. I kind of like the things that lead to them.
So. Yeah, we should tell Marcus Thompson about that, because I got flack for just being this casual fan who likes to watch dunks and threes. But the fact that this was a favorite moment shows I'm a true student of the game.
Thompson doesn't want to hear from you until you go to Howard's homecoming, so I don't want to hear anything that art. I agree with you that if it wasn't just one of the best passes of the year, it's one of the best passes I've watched as an NBA basketball fan. I also like that Iguodala's already made 2 of our top 3, so that's impressive as hell. I will match it with another just flashy play. Somewhere Thompson is shaking his head at me. This is Steph's game winner against Dallas, only because I like watching these highlights and reminding myself of how phenomenal they were. Here's that play.
Last shot to win it. Steph on the sideline at 7, at 5, at 4. Curry to win. Good! Good! 1:10 left. He did it again.
This one was important to me for multiple reasons. One, it was a really meaningful game. They needed this win to solidify their position against Dallas, and I thought that they were going to lose it all the way up until when Jermaine O'Neal goaltended Monte's shot and then set up the game winner we heard from here. But it also showed two big things from Curry. One, this newfound killer role. He is down to take the last shot. He wants to take the last shot. He doesn't need someone like Jarrett Jack or anybody else to carry that load for him anymore. And two, his willingness to shit-talk a crowd. You know, if you listen closely to that last clip we played, I mean, right in the last 3 or 4 seconds, you can hear him screaming the now iconic "We Out." I want to see that willingness to take on 19,000 fans from your franchise player, and he developed it, and we saw it here.
Yeah, this is emblematic, I think, of...
Ooh, fancy word. Nice.
Of really, like, we're taking this one game winner by Curry, but it really stands for so much more than that.
Yeah.
Because it stands for the fact that he's become that killer assassin that we always needed him to be.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if it was in him. I really didn't think that he had that killer instinct to run around to every sideline
And let him know.
and let them know. I mean, watch that clip when we put up the video of it. He goes to the baseline and says "we out." He goes to the sideline on the left side, says "we out." Then over to the Warriors bench sideline and says "we out."
Are you positive he hasn't? And so you and I spent a lot of time last year hoping he became this player. I am positive. I think he hasn't. We've seen it enough. He's hit enough of these shots. You know, obviously we'll
He's missed enough of the shots. That's what also I think means something to me.
So-
He's taking them. That's all I wanted him to do.
And in your mind now, is this guy a cold-hearted, game-killing franchise player?
He still doesn't quite have the... Gosh, I don't even know what the right word is because
Emblematic?
It definitely is not emblematic.
I'm just trying to use your words, man. Okay.
But I think what still worries me about him down the stretch is he gets in these zones where he's so on fire and hits crazy shots that I think he starts to get a little too cute with stuff.
Sure.
And tries to flip a pass too casually, tries to throw up a floater that he knows he has the chance to make,
Yep.
but he thinks will make him even kind of more legendary, like this so like lackadaisical
Sure.
kind of guy. So to me, I'd like him to remain a little more focused towards the end.
I think that we're kind of saying the same thing in some respects, or at least there's a distinction to be drawn between what you just said. I think on one side, he does have the mentality now. We're there. You know, he's willing to take the shots at least, but he's still a little lackadaisical with the ball. You know, I mean, he's still making some fairly tough decisions as far as ball security, rather, and he's getting tough time or turnovers.
But don't you think he takes kind of cute shots sometimes too?
He does. I mean, he'll take like a 40-footer 5 seconds into the shot clock as a heat check. But, I mean, as long as he's the best shooter on earth, that doesn't really bother me. We saw things like that from Jordan occasionally. You know, I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is when he charges into the lane and fires off one of those one-handed passes to someone who's no longer there. Now, that's,
Yeah.
you know, it's kind of a different topic. You know, I mean, which is why I'm saying I think we're saying kind of the same thing. I think he does have the right mentality, but there are portions of his game he still needs to clean up. But that actually leads me to my next favorite part, and it's a little bit contrary to what I was just saying, but it's the maturation of two young and phenomenal players. One is Steph Curry, the other is Draymond Green. We were just talking about Steph, so let's at least finish off that discussion. Whatever problems I have with his turnover-prone nature, whatever problems I had in the past with his inability to take big shots, I still have to say I believe that he is a top 5 player in this game. I mean, I think that with his contract, we are talking about upper level NBA royalty status after this year. He's going to need some success in the playoffs to really cement that, but I think he's done everything he needs to at least be in that conversation. But don't take it from me. Let's listen to President Obama on that.
I got to tell you, Curry's the best shooter I've ever seen. I believe that. In terms of being able to, you know, off the dribble, get his shot off from anywhere that fast, best I've ever seen. He can shoot. His daddy could shoot, but he could only stand one spot and shoot, right? He didn't really like to run around a lot.
Well, he said that he's the best shooter and then added a bunch of caveats onto that. The best off the dribble shooter, the quickest release.
Yep.
So I didn't hear anything in there about top 5 NBA player, which I think is going too far.
Did you hear anything about any other player at any point? For example, were there 4 other players who were listed?
During the maybe How long was that clip?
Would you like me to play the full thing? Because you will hear that he did not talk about any other NBA players at all. He talked about teams, and based solely on that, maybe he's the best player in the NBA.
Wow. I think you're taking that way out of context in order to support your Steph Curry slurpdom.
This was your position. You're telling me that he only talked about his skill set here, but the fact being is that it's the only player the President of the United States decided to bring up during the All-Star Weekend interview. I think if you make it into that interview, there's a pretty good argument that you deserve to be in the top 5 discussion.
Well, now, yeah, I mean, Curry deserves to be in the top 5 discussion. I just don't think you can put too much on the fact that the president brought up his name in an interview. I mean, people say stuff on the fly all the time. It doesn't mean...
President doesn't say stuff on the fly. I think we can just agree to disagree, and we might also be able to agree on you being stupid. I don't know if you're going to go with me on that, but
I don't know. Did the president say it?
There's 2 people he talks about, Steph's shooting and Scott's stupidity. It's weird. I don't know why he decided to bring that second part in. I also said the other player who has matured well beyond where I thought he would ever be in his career, Draymond Green. This guy was a second-round player they bought. I didn't even know if he was going to make the Indian squad, and I think he's become somebody now who could be a starter on a championship team and is currently a major role player on a 50-win team. Both of those are a phenomenal sign on where this guy's career is going.
Draymond had a good season. I'm not convinced on this guy until he puts together a little more consistency, but he's definitely headed in the up. You know, his arrow is going up for sure. Something I never thought I'd be saying. I think, though, in the NBA, there's really something to the idea of guys who just haven't really been on people's scattering reports.
Yep, sure.
And their ability. I think that's what you saw with Jeremy Lin a lot, where he just was. People just had. And I watched the documentary Linsanity, and he talks about during that portion where he was dropping, averaging 25 points a game. He talks about how nobody had scouted him, nobody had watched tapes on him, nobody knew his tendencies, and that's kind of the position that Draymond's at. A little different, though, in the sense that a lot of what Draymond contributes, right. I'm not sure that's really can go onto the scouting report.
Because it's the film work, generally speaking, screws you on your offensive game. They know where you want the ball. They know how you like to score. I mean, they can kind of watch that. And Draymond has improved his offensive game. You're right. If they start concentrating on him, you might not see the open threes he's been starting to hit.
The step-back threes.
Which, I mean, Jesus, we're not going to talk too much about that amazing Portland game, but in a game filled with highlights, that step-back 3 was phenomenal. But to finish out the point that I was just making, and what you started to make, is that his real impact on this team is the dirty stuff. He's getting rebounds. He's playing D. He's being dirty probably on the under, a skill that we're going to see more and more as Bogut teaches him to do it. And I don't know if you can really negate that with film work. I don't care how much they look at him. This guy is always going to be valuable. Those are the best parts of the season for me. I don't like doing this, but a topic that deserves our attention, and I do want your opinion on the worst parts of the season. Even the most successful of years had frustrating portions. That was certainly true of this season for the Warriors. And the thing that was hitting me and continues to hit me as recently as this last week when we lost to Denver was the Warriors' propensity to play down to their competition at home. Since February, the Warriors have lost a series of home games to sub-500 teams. That includes Charlotte, Cleveland, New York, and like I said, just Denver, where Timothy Mozgov, like the Marvin Bernard of the NBA, went for 23 and 29 against us. What the hell is going on with that?
Well, does it even matter anymore? They had 50 wins. They made the playoffs. Who cares if they're losing to bad teams? Because now you're in the playoffs. You're only playing good teams, which they play good against.
No, how it affects their playoffs, I am not sure. But as far as frustrating moments of an otherwise successful season, I can tell you it was remarkably successful. Frustrating. Also, I do think it means something. I'm not smart enough to tell you what it is. I'm not going to tell you it's coaching, but I don't feel like we can completely shrug off losing what were fairly important games at the time to teams that we probably should have beaten by 15. Here's the one kind of question I wanted to see with you. I'm constantly touting Oracle as the best home court advantage in sports. Well, there's no question I think these guys are phenomenal. But can I say that if they're losing to sub-500 teams? Is this some kind of shot against the Oracle fan base that they're losing these games at home? Or is it something that's completely different?
I think it's totally different. I think it has nothing to do with the home court or the Oracle crowd. I think that when it comes to the playoff time, the Oracle crowd and the home court it's huge.
Right.
You can't underestimate what it is like to be shooting on your home baskets that you play on all the time, to being able to just stay at your house and drive to the games.
Sure.
And that's why home court is routinely something that results in victories for the team who has it.
Sure. I think I agree with you, and not surprisingly. A team's ability to win at home, I don't think, is a perfect illustration of whether or not they have a good home court advantage. I think that the Warrior fans have shown we will show up, we will be as loud as possible, we will be knowledgeable when we can be, and we'll act as a catalyst for some, whatever it is you need, a defensive stop, an offensive possession that needs to score. We will be behind you every single time. I think that's all you can ask. The idea that they have lost to some of these teams is frustrating, but I don't think it illustrates some kind of lackluster appearance by the Warrior fan base. I think that there's something else going on. Perhaps we can jump into that during the offseason, but it was kind of a crappy portion of this year. How many times did you get angry when they were down to teams they should have been donkey smashing?
No, never.
Really?
Never.
That's not true.
That's
There's no possible way that's true. All right, I'm eager to talk Clippers, but we never got a chance to bring this up with Marcus Thompson, and it's been a big Warrior story over the last, 2 or 3 weeks. That's the idea that Coach Ehrman got fired from the team. Now, we don't have to talk about what that means for Mark Jackson, but here's my question for you. Bob Myers came out and said that he would have been fired, he being Coach Ehrman, from any team because of what he did, but they never announced what the hell did he do? Did this guy come to work naked? Did he kill thunder? Did he hump a donkey on center court? I mean, what went down that led to this, do you think?
I think I just have no idea.
You don't think it's the donkey humping?
Oh, well, that was what was going to be. That was the reason for my hesitation. Was I was kind of wondering if that was what it was. Who knows? I mean, it must have been bad enough to get him axed. I don't know if it was legit though.
I'm guessing he was dating somebody. Just something as innocuous as that, and they had to immediately axe it quickly, and then we'll jump into Clippers. Did you think it was a big deal? Losing a couple of assistant coaches in the span of a month, does that sign of dysfunction or just distraction? Who gives a
Total dysfunction in my mind.
Do you really think that?
Oh, yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Because you're a team, and anytime you have people coming, going under very not talked about circumstances, that is the definition of dysfunction. And I think Mark Jackson has a huge ego. I think he's very sensitive to people thinking that he's not doing a good job. And in one part of me thinks he would love to fire every assistant coach.
So it's just him.
And he gets all the credit.
Enough where you think that falls into the playoffs? Is this we're just getting ready to talk about the Clipper series. Is this even a factor for you that this was happening right before, or have you already moved on? It was what it was, and now we're in a different place?
I don't know what type of relationship Ehrman had with the players, so I'm not sure if there were certain guys he had been working with or if he had kind of been taking the offense during one part of practice and somebody else is kind of working with the defense or the big guys. Sure. A lot of times coaches divvy up sort of the responsibilities in that way. So it could be big because guys could be missing him. And maybe a lot of times you might use that assistant coach to communicate something to the other coaches, to Jackson as a player, Yeah. Or that player could use Ehrman to communicate to another player.
That's fair. I thought they were making a mountain out of a molehill. I thought that the Ehrman story really showed the difference between new school and old school Warrior fans. New school Warrior fans took it like Chicken Little. The sky's fallen. We are screwed. What's happening here? Where are we going? Old fans saw that we're about to win 50 games. Who gives a what happens with the assistant coach? And just while I'm making large proclamations for no reason, I've taken a lot of shots at Mark Jackson. Let me take a pro view, and then I promise we'll move on to the Clippers. The most successful and most revered modern coach, the coach of our era is Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson was not a phenomenal offensive play caller, which is the principal source of that we give Mark Jackson, that he can't call offensive sets on the other side. Phil Jackson's offensive sets were called by Tex Winters. The vaunted triangle offense did not come from him. They came from someone else. Jackson's principal ability, the thing that made him the legend that he is his ability to motivate millionaire superstar athletes. And Coach Jackson, has that. The second that his ass was on the hot seat. Yeah, I'm sorry, Coach Mark Jackson. Steph went out of his way to say, I want to play for this guy. People like Iguodala decided to come play for Golden State, principally because he wanted to play for Mark. Same thing with Jermaine O'Neal. I think that a lot of this is getting swept underneath the rug, and I think that's ridiculous. There's not a whole lot of coaches who command that respect, and if the Warriors have one now, they need to do what they can to keep him and then give him the assistant coaches who can provide the kind of offensive play calling that he's lacking. All right, let's move on to the portion I've been most fired up about. Let's talk playoffs, baby, and let's do it through the WTH lens. This week, let's figure out what the hell are the keys and the main storylines against this upcoming series, or for this upcoming series, rather, against the Los Angeles Clippers. First, set us up, Scotty. Obviously, we know who the hell plays for the Warriors. Give us a brief overview on the main players for the Clip.
Well, the starting Clippers, it changes a little bit, but your staples are Chris Paul,
Yeah.
Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, and then Matt Barnes, and like in the Denver game, which was the Clippers' second to last game, you had JJ Redick, who back was from an injury. He was starting.
He came back. Okay.
Yeah, so he came back, but
how many minutes did he play in that game?
Well, he only played 17.
So they're still working him back in.
They're still working him in. I mean, Jamal Crawford had 31 minutes that game. Darren Collison played like 24 minutes.
And they've just added people down the stretch, right? They got Danny Granger. They picked up Big Baby. I mean, it's kind of an interesting team.
I think that's what makes kind of talking about the playoff matchups a little different, because we can't necessarily use the 4 games that these two teams had against each other, because they're kind of both different teams now. We'll talk about the Bogut injury, but that makes the Warriors a different team.
Absolutely right.
And then the Clippers have picked up Big Baby Davis, Danny Granger, Turkoglu wasn't with them at the start of the season.
Turkoglu on that team?
Turkoglu's on that team.
Over under minutes played for Turkoglu in this series, 5.
Oh, over.
You think so? You think we're going to get big Haydu minutes?
Yeah, I definitely.
That makes me excited for this.
So
he seems like he would smell like. By the way, I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Yeah. Potential for that, as do many men as they sweat profusely throughout the game.
Especially filthy Euro guys with his face. Now, that said, let me ask you this question. Let's start off with an optimistic one. Assuming that you do think they can, why can the Warriors win this series? That's a long pause. You're making me nervous.
Well, yeah, boy. I guess if they're gonna win this, they have to rebound the basketball.
Yeah.
Because the Clippers are an outstanding rebounding team, and that's, I think, how they get a lot of their victories is just they'll get rebounds, and it helps them on both offense and defense. They'll get offensive rebounds, which result in easy putbacks, but more than that, they'll secure the defensive rebound and run the floor quickly.
Sure.
So they get up and down the floor fast, and that leads me to my second point as far as why the Warriors might win this, is the Clippers play an up-tempo game.
Right.
I think that plays right into the hands of the Warriors. So the Warriors are going to get transition threes, and I think that they need to knock those down if they're going to win this.
We agree on one of them, the way that the Clippers play. The thing that terrifies me about the playoffs is that, generally speaking, in the playoffs, the game slows way down, and if you can't execute in the half court, you're screwed. The Warriors are not real solid in half-court offense, especially now that Bogut's not a part of it and can't be that wheel in the middle to both set screens and drop those backdoor passes. So playing against a team that wants to run just like us kind of circumnavigates that whole problem. So, there's one reason I think we have at least a slight advantage. Here's the second one, and it dovetails into everything we just said. There is a chance, even though Chris Paul is in this series, that Steph Curry is the best player in it. And as long, I will say that. I will absolutely say that. Now, I'm not saying it's guaranteed, and I'm not even saying that if I was offered a trade for Chris Paul that I immediately say no. But I do believe that there's a chance that he can outplay Chris Paul if he can. If he can take over this series, then there is a chance the Warriors can win it. And for as long as that's true, even without Bogut, there's a sense of optimism for me.
This is a huge chance for Steph Curry to kind of step out of Paul's shadow as the best point guard on the West Coast.
And he always plays really well against him. There are certain teams that people seem to get up against, and I'm sure that Curry grew up watching Paul. I'm sure that he's always kind of wanted his respect. And I think because of that in the regular season games, he always plays really well, and that's got to be heightened during the playoffs.
Paul was
right?
in North Carolina. Went to Wake Forest.
That's right, sure.
So he saw him there, and no doubt that this is someone he gets up against.
Yeah. Hell yes.
Now, we gotta address this Bogut thing because I've been wanting to talk about it all podcast.
Well,
you've been holding me back.
Here's a question for you that'll immediately trigger it. What is it? What concerns you most about the series?
Well, the Bogut injury.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, my God, could there have been a bigger blow? So, to set the scene for those who don't know, he's got a fractured rib right near his lung, apparently, which is why he doesn't want to push it because he's worried about puncturing his lung.
Which sounds pretty nasty.
Which, Bogut, he's a tough guy. He'll play through stuff, I think.
Yeah.
And so the fact that he's worried about this, it really means something. He's having trouble doing just day-to-day things like breathing and driving.
Why does it screw him in this series?
Basically because Bogut's size is so needed against the Clippers' athletic front line. And I think what made me most worried about this is the fact that in the last time these two teams matched up, if you remember, Mark Jackson switched his rotations switched the guys he normally had guarding each other.
Yep.
So he put Bogut on Blake Griffin.
Right.
Now, Griffin usually matches up with a smaller, athletic forward who he can bang down low and go at in the post.
And Bogut forced him out away from the basket.
Yeah,
15 feet.
Griffin happened to be on fire that game and was hitting jumpers.
Sure.
But I don't think that's going to happen for a whole series. And now all of a sudden you're back to having a guy like David Lee guard him, probably Draymond.
Yep.
So I just think they're going to get so out-rebounded, which is why I said rebounding was a key if they're going to win this.
Bogut's injury just killed me this last week. I mean, the timing of it honestly could not have been worse. If he had gotten hurt, let's say a month ago, and he was going to be out for the rest of the year, but the Warriors were able to kind of continue on, they got that 6th seed, then at this point I'd still be kind of optimistic. I'd still be excited. We'd put the Bogut injury behind us. I'd start looking at the upside. We still have this great backcourt. We still have D. Lee who's here. We got a little bit of size with Jermaine. I wouldn't be worried about it. But to have it happen just last week, right when we got the 50 wins, right when we solidified the 6th seed.
At the end of a game, too, when kind of things were already locked up.
And you could tell that he was hurt when he was writhing on the floor. You knew he wasn't coming back. In some ways, it stole a lot of my happiness just for the playoffs itself. Now, to this series specifically, one of the advantages the Warriors had against the Clippers during the regular season, one of the reasons I was so excited to watch this, was that we were tougher. Say what you want about Blake Griffin. Say what you want about DeAndre Jordan. Say what you want about their aerial acrobatics. But none of them are tough guys. You punch them in the mouth, and chances are they're going to back down. The principal source for toughness for us was Bogut. We saw that in the Christmas game against the Clip. To have lost that is a really big thing for me. And
he's our enforcer.
If there's something I enjoyed watching more than him making Blake look like a little girl, I don't know what the hell it is. And so that's going to be a really difficult thing. You've already mentioned the rebounding, so I won't go back through that. And just to kind of rehash what you and I were talking about before the mics went hot, we've said in the past whether or not Bogut is injury prone. I now think that his body isn't necessarily injury prone, but his game is. Just the way that he throws that 7-foot frame around with the kind of violent collisions that he's looking for. It's not that his body is somehow more susceptible to injury. It's just the way he plays makes him more susceptible to injury. And what I was saying before was that if I walk across the freeway multiple times and get hurt a lot of times, it doesn't mean I'm prone to injury. It just means I'm doing things that make me more prone.
Well, a lot of these centers are doing the same things, though, and they're not getting injured at the same clip that he is.
Not the same way. I mean,
come on. You look at a guy like Joakim Noah or, Marc Gasol or... DeAndre Jordan? DeAndre Jordan is an incredible defender. He's blocking everyone.
Thank God we ended with DeAndre because your first two were probably much better. The DeAndre Jordan thing I can argue against immediately. He doesn't play the same kind of collision-based blocks that Bogut does. Bogut clogs lanes. DeAndre Jordan sneaks up from behind. Bogut will use his body to knock you to the floor. DeAndre Jordan uses athleticism to knock your shot into the fifth row.
Okay, well then talk about Joakim Noah.
Well, let's go to those other two now. Marc Gasol is somewhere between the two. Joakim Noah is a good example. I don't know if there's a more durability there or not, but I don't think that there's some kind of genetic predisposition where Bogut's getting hurt. I just think it's the way that he's playing. Now, that said, that does worry the hell out of me. Here's another thing that really worries me about this series. It used to be as recent as, 2 months ago, that the D. Lee Blake matchup was almost a wash. You know, they both put up a lot of points. They both come closer to 20 and 10, but one of them didn't necessarily destroy the other. In these last couple of months, Blake has become a monster.
I think, yeah, that's a really good point and a worrisome one. And the reason you saw that emergence, I think, is Chris Paul was hurt for a little over a month.
Sure.
And during the time that Chris Paul was out, you had Blake Griffin, who became the man, and he embraced that role.
And if we don't have somebody like Bogut punching him in the mouth and trying to push him back, you know, making him more worried about the trenches of the game than the highlights, that's going to be a problem. You know what I mean? All right, next question. Who is the Warriors' X factor to you in this series?
I think it's going to be the bench.
Huh.
I think you are going to have guys, and I'm including Draymond and Harrison Barnes kind of as part of that bench.
Because we're not
unit.
sure who the bench is going to be, right? Didn't you tell me who's the starting five that Jackson announced the other day?
Well, Jackson has said that he's going to go small by playing D. Lee at center and Draymond or Harrison at the 4.
That seems crazy.
That seems crazy against this team. I'm hoping he said that maybe when they still had a chance to play Houston or something. I'm not even sure if it would make sense then. But I think you got to put Jermaine O'Neal or Spates as your starter.
You let this team get a bunch of second chance points and we're screwed. I mean, you know, like if you go small and these guys get 4 or 5 attempts at every single possession, there's no way it works.
Well,
but
he may just be trying to, I don't know, trade dunks for threes.
Yeah.
Though.
He may be head faking them too. He announced starting lineups against Denver last year and then came out with somebody else within 5 minutes of announcing it. So who knows what he's saying. But get back to what you're saying about the bench. Why are they the X factor?
I think the starters are going to do their thing.
Yeah.
I really believe that. And I think that there's going to be so much focus on Curry and getting the ball out of his hands because we all know how much he accounts for not just points scored, but the assisting on the points that the Warriors score.
And that their entire defensive focus has got to be on him.
Yeah, so that's why I see basically when he doesn't have the ball, like what are the Warriors going to do? And it's a part that really worries me is that I don't think this team has their rotations down. I don't think they like their substitution rotations. Yep. And with Bogut out, now it's even more of a kind of who knows what the rotations are going to be, and that's worrisome.
And the bench doesn't necessarily immediately know what their roles are supposed to be. You know, I mean, what they're supposed to, like Jamal Crawford, when he comes in for the Clippers, knows I got to put up 15 quick points. You know, Big Baby knows get some secondary rebounds, kick back out. Granger knows I'm just here for 3-point shooting and, you know, being a has-been that probably never will be again. The Warriors are a little bit messier because we've been messing around with it all year that I'm not sure they have those kind of defined roles. My X factor, and it's kind of a similar thing to what you're saying, and it's a little bit of a cheater response because I'm going to give you 2 players, but you did the whole bench, so I feel okay about it, is either Iguodala or Harrison Barnes. Here's why. We know the scores on the Warriors. You can, you know, Steph, go ahead and put him in for 20 and 15 probably. Clay is going to have some ups and downs, but he's going to give you good outside shooting. D. Lee is going to score from the post. We know these things. What we have not seen is Iguodala or Harrison Barnes really find their feet. Last year, when he was playing for Denver, Iguodala caught fire for the first time. He was averaging 20 points. Last year, when Harrison was still a man playing against San Antonio, he came out of nowhere and started putting up 15. If these guys do that, if we get that kind of production from someone that we're not anticipating, then we've got a legitimate shot. If we stick with the 4 we have, you know, and that's all the scoring we're getting, I don't think we're going to have the firepower rather to beat these guys. So they're going to occupy a really important spot. How about Clip? Who's the X factor for that?
I think Jamal Crawford. He's coming back from a calf injury, and they need this guy to provide to give the starter some rest. I mean, he is their go-to guy off the bench.
Didn't it feel like one of the Jamals, I mean, either Crawford one of the Crawfords, either Jamal or Jordan, is going to either win or lose one of these games? You know, either just shoot their team way out of it, in which case you hate them, or get super hot, have a 30-point half, and then push them over to the other decision.
Yeah, I could definitely see watching one of those games where, you know, if you're a Clippers fan and all of a sudden Jordan Crawford starts going off and you're just like, how could this be? Like, who is this guy? I've never even seen him play all season.
Right. Yeah, that's
and he's
absolutely
destroying
right.
us.
Meanwhile, they have kind of bastardized games of each other. You know, I mean, like it's almost like their games are stepbrothers or something. I mean, it's the exact kind of feel. My X factor for the series, and to be honest with you, probably the thing I'm more concerned about than even Bogut is Doc Rivers. They still had Vinny.
This is another X factor after saying Iguodala and Barnes were.
Well, no. Those two were the X factors for the Warriors. This is my Clippers X factor.
Oh.
Yours was Jamal. Mine is Doc Rivers. He is a championship level coach. He just is. I mean, look at his record. But this guy, they didn't bring him over to lose in the first round. They didn't put up this 57-win series to lose in the first round. If it was Vinny Del Negro and the Clippers were basing their chance of success only on their players, I think we got a shot. But now that you have somebody who knows how to use these guys, who knows how to motivate a player like Chris Paul, motivate a player like Blake Griffin, and not fall for the kind of ridiculous shenanigans that Mark Jackson was pulling last year, it worries me. Then I'm interested to see where it goes. Here's my huddle question for you: who's the most annoying Clipper player?
Matt Barnes.
Oh, ex-Warrior, man. Watch out. If he hears this, he'll punch you right in your face.
Oh, yeah. That guy, I mean, he's annoyed me since the Pac-10 days. Just, I don't know, he really does frustrate me. He also has annoyed me from the Summer League games at Kezar that he doesn't show up for.
And only because he punched a fireman like the game before and he got suspended for a quarter. I won't take shots at my boy Matt Barnes. He was too successful here in Golden State. I'll give you two other guys, J.J. Redick and Big Baby Davis. J.J. Redick looks like a Disney bully. It's like he gives Gordon Hayward a run for the money in the most annoying kind of dick frat boy white guy look. Like I cannot stand that dude. And then Big Baby, Jesus, you know how much I hate him. He destroyed us last year. He looks like he should be playing offensive line somewhere. Like he spends his off time eating Baby Ruths constantly, and he's going to have some big offensive rebound, 3-point play, and do that ridiculous fat man smile that I cannot stand watching. He's going to be tough to watch for the course of this series.
Luckily, I don't think he's going to play much, so you won't have a lot to worry about. J.J. Redick, on the other hand, will be that Disney villain that we all despise.
There's no question. All right, what storyline of this series do you think is the most intriguing?
I'll have to just say the bad blood, the rivalry.
Sure.
There's been so much drama between these two teams in the regular season that take these two guys into kind of a cage match.
Yeah.
And we're going to have some fireworks.
The seeming hatred that they have. I got a cop-out answer for you. It kind of loops in what we were just saying for Bogut's injury, but I think one of the unintended, and I'm going to use the word benefits, even though it might not apply, of Bogut's injury is that if they do lose this series, I think before that, Mark Jackson was gone and in a heartbeat. I think that if they lose it now without Bogut, I think that he's got the justification where they can't just let him go. And I think, if they do lose, we're going to have an off season where it's no longer a clean question about whether or not Mark Jackson should be let go.
And he gets the extension?
I don't know. I mean,
you can't bring him back next year without having an extension in place before the season ends.
You can't have a lame duck. Absolutely not. You couldn't be more right. But if they had lost with a full squad, they lose, you go into the offseason, you still get the support from Steph, you still get the support from the rest of the team, but they let him go, I don't think there's a whole lot of backlash. We understand where it's coming from. If they lose now without one of the principal cogs, maybe the guy who's most important next to Steph, it's not going to be an easy look. And I think that's going to, and we're getting ahead of ourselves. Maybe they'll move on and we'll be fine. But it does add kind of an intriguing possibility as we move into the offseason, should it happen. All right, here's the only question that really matters. Who wins this series? Scotty, what do you think?
I think the Clippers do it in 6 games. Yep. It's the Bogut thing was just a huge blow.
I am going to be irrational. I'm going to say because of our backcourt and because I believe that Steph can ultimately outplay Chris Paul, I'm going Warriors in 7.
Oh, my God. If Bogut was not injured, what would you say?
Warriors in 6. Boom! That's how I roll, baby. Let's go Warriors. I'll even bet you on it. I got 50 beans that says they pull it out. I don't even want odds. I'll just take them straight up.
Okay, man.
It's
Homer.
on.
Sounds like a homer.
There's no question about that.
No, that's good. I'm not sure I'll watch this series. I'm going to be watching my Wizards. Number 6.
I'm not even going to say that word. I don't care about the East. All right, I need your advice before we get out. I've put myself into a terrible position as usual. I had no foresight. I signed up for so the Warriors, as you know, are playing the first game on Saturday. Time yet to be determined. Months ago, I told a friend that I would show up to their baby shower, Scott, on Saturday. There's going to be like 15 other kids. There's going to be hella parents I don't give a shit about there. I'm not watching the first playoff game of this year in Romper Room.
Tape
That's not happening. No, okay. I'm watching it live. I'm also not watching it on tape. That's ridiculous. So what I was going to ask, what would you do? I mean, should I lie to this person and say I got sick? Do I just tell them the truth? It's a playoff game and I don't care about your kid? I mean, what are my options?
This is the playoffs. All bets are off.
There's no way you'd tape it. Was that a real suggestion? Would you tape a playoff game?
Yeah, I would, but that is only under extreme circumstances, which this may qualify for. But I got to say, man, when it comes to the playoffs, that is a moment where I'm just heartless with people. I'm watching the game. It doesn't matter what else was on the books. They're coming. It's coming off. I'm watching.
I apparently agree with you because I know this person actually listens to this podcast, and I just publicly announced I don't give a shit about their kid, so that's big fun. I guess we'll see how it goes. I'll come back with an update for you next week. Before we get you out of here, let me give you a quote. We're going to step away from the worlds of Charles Barkley and instead enter the world of Mike Tyson. This is a quote we played before the Denver series last year, and it's one I think that's even more applicable now. If the Warriors are going to win it, this is the mentality they need.
I was going to rip his heart out. I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me. Lynx is a conqueror. No, I'm Alexander. He's no Alexander. I'm the best ever. There's never been anybody as ruthless. I'm Sonny Liston. I'm Jack Dempsey. There's no one like me. I'm from Nairclaw. There's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous. My defense is impregnable. And I'm just ferocious. I want your heart. I want to eat his children.
God, that fires me up every single time. It's so much fun hanging out with you guys. Please enjoy the playoffs, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, please remember, we can be found at Twitter at Warriors Huddle. Our email account is warriorshuddle@gmail.com. Our website remains warriorsworld.net, and we remain on a bunch of podcasting services, including iTunes, where, if you wouldn't mind, hop on there, subscribe to us. You don't even have to listen. Just subscribe to us.
It really helps people find the show if you rate it.
And it really helps us as well. So thank you, and go Warriors. See you next week.
We stay repping at Golden State, balling hard, no debate. Back in the day, it seemed like every year we started 0-8. But this is a new team, new coach with a new game plan. New owners, new jerseys, new roster, same fans. 20,000 deep every game, that's what I call support. Gotta say we got the most loyal fans in all the sports. Brushing off the critics, trying to sell us short. We just all go nuts when our Warriors hit the court. Hella fans who just can't hide that they pride. If you cheer for the Dubs and you and I are on the same side. Stepping up to the plate every time we need a win. We believed in 07, now we believe again. Ain't no way, no how, we ain't backing down. On the battlefield, we protect our ground. Ain't no way, no how, we ain't backing down. On the battlefield, we protect our ground.
Good.